Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, Chair.
Morning, morning, members. Morning, Ms. Moy. Good morning to you, sir, to the members and the staff, and more importantly, good morning to the Minister of Employment and Labour, whom I will say maybe in a short notice accepted our invitation.
Recording in progress.
I think in opening, there are two things that I really want to put across. Is that one, in our last Thursday, we dealt with safety and security cluster, which we are not yet finished with the portfolio committees that are in that cluster. And now, yes, it is not the last Thursday is going to be on the 27th, but on the 27th, we're not around. We are, it's committee week. We then requested the Minister of Employment and Labour, which is then ETC. When we then come back again, we will then identify a ministry in the ETC, so that we are not all over. If we take them, because we will then call those that are in the social cluster. But more and above, honorable members, what I would like to impress to members, we are not a portfolio committee. So when departments to ministers are here, they are empowering us with an information which, when we are outside, either in terms of our constituents areas, or you are, as a member of parliament, you are asked something by a matter, you are then empowered. Where they are accountable, they are accountable in their line portfolio committees. So I'm humbly requesting that we'll then have to, and even if when we ask questions, we'll ask questions for clarity. We will raise issues to ministers that we think that the department must look into. But in terms of accounting, they are not accountable to us. They are accountable to their line portfolio committee meetings. I thought, honorable members, it's important that I elevate that, so that it does not confuse us. So that when I make an example, as the steering committee, we sit, we pick up what has then been raised, and we then either make that follow up, because as parliament, we have got the right to call whoever that must come in front of us. That's number one. Number two, we have just had a women's parliament, which was a hybrid. I want to thank all members that attended. There are issues that have been raised. We have not yet, remember that the report of the Women's Parliament has got its own time. We will then get that. We were told that it's going to take about 30 days because there were a number of presentations that we made so that we give the content advisors and the research time to produce that draft report, which it is then going to come to us. But it was a success, let alone that we were then under pressure. And well, we will during the end we will also, but I think that Women's Parliament, among other things, it was a preparation for P20 Parliament, which is going to be led by the speakers, but obviously the steering committee will be part of that. We are not yet sure how many women, how many of us are going to be, okay, how many women are delegated to attend in terms of the Parliament of South Africa. But from our side, as the steering committee, we have been given a number. If then that number, as we go on preparing, exceeds the number of the members of the steering committee, we will then identify those that will then be relevant. We know in the program we were informed, but it has not been formally placed in front of us that there are some chairs that we are then going to be in the program in line with the issues that this whole process in terms of the P20 speakers see those relevant. I thought in opening, I must highlight those, but what I want to labor on so that we don't have is that the Minister of Employment and Labour is not here to account. The Minister of Employment and Labour is here to take us through in terms of the status, in terms of employment and equity in the country, in terms of representation of women and vulnerable groups, so that as we move around ourselves and as the steering committee and as members of portfolio committees, because even in portfolio committees we are requesting that women members of parliament in their portfolio committees, there are issues that they must elevate, in particular issues that are touching into transformation. There was employment and employment the legislation of equity is nothing else. That's why there was a cry. I'm sure the minister will also just take us through about the issue of the court. That's why that's why Parliament was taken to court, because it's about transformation. Having said that, I welcome all members. Some of the announcements, we will raise them when we close. Having said that, welcome and thank you very much for those that have availed themselves. I will then hand over to Ms. Moyi for apologies and credentials. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson. Morning, Chairperson, honorable members, ministers and deputy ministers and colleagues. Chairperson, you only received 4 apologies. Excuse me. So one from Honorable Boshoff and another one from Honorable Deputy Minister Pinky Kekana, Honorable Deputy Minister Mamuchapa, and Honorable Speaker Mamutako Titis. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And in terms of credentials, how many are we? I can see we are now at 39, which is fine. I would appreciate, and I will tell you, I will reflect to members in moving forward. In fact, it's humble. It's what I'm putting across to the members. In moving forward, Ms. Moy, you must have a table, a breakdown of members. As much as we see here in the members, we must have that also on paper. Members, how many members of the ANC, I'm making an example, have attended? How many members of the DA? How members of yes, because they are what personally I've observed. They are political parties that are not attending these meetings, but when they are activities, they are the ones that really want to do things in their own way. We, as the steering committee, will look into that because we have not yet evaluate evaluate and assess the women's parliament. But please, Ms. Moy, in moving forward, and I want to put it across here so that members understand when we come back, we will then look into that. Having said that, we are on point 3 of our agenda, which is the adoption of our agenda. Our agenda today, we are then going to be taken through by the Honorable Minister, Caucus on the issue of employment equity legislation. And briefly, sorry, Minister, and just briefly, the outcome of the court as department. You were taken to court by one of our parties in Parliament. Over to you, Minister.
Good morning, Chairperson. I don't know whether we have dealt with the adoption of the agenda. Chairperson, I thought you said we were on item 3, which is adoption of the agenda. May I check?
Yes, we have dealt with the adoption of the agenda.
Oh,
Or do you want us to? Yeah, we have dealt. We have got only one item for today, which is the briefing by the Employment and Labour.
Sorry, thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, members must confirm whether we do adopt the agenda or not.
Oh, thank you. Are we adopting the agenda, honourable members? Can we get a?
Honorable
Chair, Honourable, can I note hands? There are 2 hands, Honourable Mazibuko, Honourable Letia, Honourable Seni, Honourable Mazibuko, Galega Mazibuko.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to you and good morning to the leadership of the platform. I move for the adoption of the agenda as tabled, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Galega Mazibuko. Honourable Letsike.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning to honorable members. I wish to second that for the adoption of this agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable Seni.
Thanks. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members on the platform. I third. Thank you.
Thank you. There is Ms. Moy. There is 1912-87-38. We don't allow. We don't. What is this? We don't allow members to enter to the meeting without them identifying themselves. So can that person please write the name and welcome Deputy Chair, Honorable James. Who is that member who has joined? If that person can name herself or himself, I will Oh, okay. Oh, thank you very much. Over to you, Minister.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson. I just wanted to show that I'm here. I'm not in bed, but I think we are affected by load reduction where I stay, as we are reliably informed that we don't have any more load shedding. Because of that reason, I will request that I mute my video to enhance my bandwidth, Chair, if you allow.
I will allow you, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. The Steering Committee of the Multi-Party Women's Caucus, esteemed members of our Women's Caucus, all those administrative and senior leadership of our administration, administrative leadership that is in the meeting. But special greetings to my deputy ministers. I saw Deputy Minister Sibia. I don't know if I missed Deputy Minister Nematzinga Shabalala. I greet you, my comrades and the officials from the Department of Employment and Labor. We meet here today in a season of reckoning, a season where our society must account for its commitment to equality, dignity, and justice. 31 years into democracy, we can no longer mince our words. The slow pace of transformation in employment and the continued marginalization of women in the workplace and the whole of society are unfortunate. They reinforce injustices. The Employment Equity Amendment Act 4 of 2022 and the Employment Equity Regulations published in April 2025 represent a sharpened tool of justice, reaffirming our constitutional mandate to root out unfair discrimination and accelerate the pace of inclusion, especially for women and historically disadvantaged groups. The Department of Employment and Labor is entrusted by the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, Section 9 on Equality, and the Bill of Rights to protect citizens from unfair discrimination and to remove structural barriers that prevent women, especially Black, that is African, colored, and Indian women, and women with disabilities, from fully participating in and benefiting from our economy. Our Constitution and our democracy were born from the direct and courageous rejection of racialized and gender exclusion. Section 9 of the Bill of Rights guarantees equality and directs the state to take all necessary legislative steps and other measures to protect citizens disadvantaged by unfair discrimination. This is a constitutional obligation, Honorable Chair, rather than a matter of charity. Our laws since 1994 flow from that promise. Equality as both a value and a measure of publication. Yet the legacy of apartheid and patriarchal exclusion remains visible in boardrooms, in senior management, in occupational stratification, and in pay differentials. Women are a large and vital share of the economically active population, but their representation declines sharply as one moves up the occupational ladder. Left unaddressed, these disparities entrench poverty, reduce economic growth, and deny South Africa the benefit of full participation by half of our population. Since 1995, our labor framework has been redesigned around fairness and redress. The Labor Relations Act of 1995 established durable protections for fair labor practices, collective bargaining, and mechanisms. CCMA and bargaining councils are responsible for that in order to address workplace disputes. The Basic Conditions of Employment Act of 1997 sets minimum standards on working time, leave, and conditions that especially protect vulnerable workers and women. The National Minimum Wage Act and sectors instruments introduced floors that reduce exploitation and disproportionately benefit low-paid women. The Employment Equity of 1998, the Act of 1998, created the affirmative action framework to eliminate unfair discrimination and to promote equitable representation of designated groups, including women, at all occupational levels. Codes of good practice have guided implementation and practical tools for employers. Over 3 decades, these instruments have been strengthened through codes, regulations, and oversight bodies, including the Commission for Employment Equity and the Commission for Gender Equality. Together, they form the legal architecture to convert constitution-level norms into workplace realities. The Commission for Employment Equity has published its most recent 25th annual report, which provides the up-to-date picture of the labor force and highlights both progress and persistent gaps. The report shows continued improvement in some sectors. For an example, greater female participation in areas such as ICT. We are living through the 4th industrial revolution, where technologies like artificial intelligence, cloud computing, robotics, and 5G are reshaping industries, supply chains, and communities. The World Economic Forum tells us that by 2030, an estimated 85 million jobs globally may be displaced by automation, while 97 million new roles will emerge, roles that are more digitally driven, more knowledge intensive, and more globally connected. This is both a risk and an opportunity. The risk is that without deliberate action, women will once again be crowded out of the jobs of the future, just as they were excluded from the jobs of the past. Already, studies show that women are more likely to be employed in routine clerical or service roles that are highly vulnerable to automation. But the opportunity, the prize we must claim, is to ensure that women are equipped, empowered, and positioned to lead in the digital economy. If women gain equal access to digital skills and digital work, the global economy could add an estimated $13 trillion to global GDP by 2030. That is the scale of what is at stake. The CEE report remains clear that while headway has been made at low occupational levels, women, particularly African women, remain underrepresented in decision-making positions. To be concrete, CEE analysis and sector breakdowns show that female representation in top management remains low relative to their share of the economically active population, and that while some sectors report improvements at junior and semi-skilled levels, the leadership pipeline remains narrow. These are the patterns the amendment and the sectoral targets are designed to change. Honorable members, these injustices are not accidents of history. They are perpetuated by anti-equality forces, forces who resist every government effort to level the playing field, who litigate at every turn, and who cloak their defense of privilege in the language of fairness and meritocracy. Let us call it what it is: organized resistance to justice. The codes of good practice on matters such as preparation and monitoring of EE plans, equal pay for work of equal value, prevention of harassment, and reasonable accommodation for persons with disabilities remain critical operation tools for employers and inspectors. The department will continue to use codes, inspections, targeted compliance audits, and administrative sanctions alongside incentives such as preferential procurement, certification, alignment, to bring results. We'll also continue to refine the reporting mechanisms so data is accurate, comparable, and usable. Our department and government will not retreat. If anything, we will double our efforts, fortify our resolve, and sharpen our instruments of enforcement. Compliance with employment equity is not optional. It is the law, and we will wield every mechanism at our disposal to ensure that those who benefit from South Africa's economy contribute to its transformation. Colleagues, history teaches us something profound. When women rise, societies rise. Women are anchors of families, communities, and economies. Their advancement spills over into education, healthcare, innovation, and social cohesion. To empower women is to multiply the nation's prosperity. To delay their empowerment is to sabotage our collective future. South African women have been nothing short of resilient. Through centuries of exclusion and decades of democratic disappointment, women have fought, endured, and triumphed. That resilience must now be met with decisive action from government, employers, and all stakeholders. A clarion call, enforcement, partnerships,
We have lost you, Minister.
and whole of society program. There are many
We are losing you.
Chairperson, I'm running out.
We are losing you. I will humbly request that.
I'm going to the
I'll
car. Right out of this place now. No. So Chairperson.
Can you please wrap up so that we get the presentation?
Okay, Chairperson, I was about to wrap up. Can you hear me?
Yes, I think we can hear you now.
Okay, I was about to wrap up, Chairperson. Thank you so much for that. I was saying the amendment and regulations are necessary, but they are not sufficient. Parliament and oversight is needed to strengthen parliamentary oversight of implementation and requires regular sector-by-sector briefings from the department and the CE and monitor progress against the 5-year sectoral targets that we have set. Employers and business is expected to treat employment equity plans as strategic business plans with HR, finance, and board oversight, not merely as a compliance checklist, but board must be accountable for transformation targets and succession planning that build women into the pipeline. Labor and civil society, trade unions, the Women's Caucus, the Commission for Gender Equality, business chambers, and civil society must work together to support workplace transformation through skills development, mentoring, and practical removal of barriers, flexible work, childcare support, addressing sexual harassment, and gender-based discrimination. Data and transparency and capability is intended to further invest in data quality. Incentives and sanctions must be used as a combination of incentives and proportionate sanctions for persistent non-compliance. Honorable members, we're in this business for changing the status quo. Incremental progress is no longer enough. What South Africa needs now is a radical acceleration of equality and unflinching march toward workplaces where women, and particularly Black women, are at the center, not at the margins. We owe it to our constitution, to our democracy, and most importantly, to women of South Africa. Together, we must bend the arc of our nation towards true equality. On the court outcomes, we were vindicated by the judgment that shot down that application for agency by what called themselves the National Employers Association, and on the case of the DA still await the judgment. I will now, Honorable Chairperson, invite Ms. Ntswaki Mamashela to make the detailed presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Before he comes in, let me appreciate your deputy minister, and I think who is because this is not only a platform for females, it's both for both. The society is made up of females and males, and when we are discussing some of these issues, we do appreciate that we are joined by males, whom we think all males in parliament, maybe majority of them, are supportive and welcome DM and both. I haven't seen the other one, but both of you, as I'm specifically you, because specifically elevating you because you are a male DM, and please encourage and please talk to your counterparts to join us. Over to the presenter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Madam Chairperson. Let me start by thanking my Minister of Employment and Labour, Honorable Minister Meth, our deputy ministers that are here today, and other ministers, honorable members of the Women's Caucus in Parliament, our acting Director General of Employment and Labour, who's leading officials and other senior managers from the department. I greet you all this morning. My name is Ntswaki Mamashela. I'm the director responsible for employment equity in the labor market under the Department of Employment and Labor. Madam Chair, let me share my own presentation. I'm not sure if the Secretariat will be sharing the presentation. I find it easier if I share it myself, Madam Chair, if you allow me.
Yes, I will allow you. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, are you able to see the presentation?
Not yet. It's only your beautiful face that we are able to see and your smile, but the presentation not yet.
I'm trying, Madam Chair, to share the presentation.
Okay.
If I'm failing, Madam Chair, I'll request that the Secretariat assist me.
No, we are able to see. Thank you very much. It's on the screen.
You can see it now.
Yes.
Madam Chair, this is an honor and a privilege to be addressing the Multi-Party Women's Caucus this morning on behalf of the Ministry of Employment and Labour. We were requested, Madam Chair, to give you an update on the implementation of the Employment Equity Act and its regulations that were published this year. However, Chair, we took the liberty to ensure that we first start by giving you a background or a context of our labor legislation and policy framework on promotion of equality or gender equality in South Africa.
Chair.
Madam Chair?
Chair. Honorable Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Kancho.
My apologies for interjecting, Honorable Chair. I was going to request that the presenter switch off the video. Please, Chair, through you.
Oh, okay, so that it does not affect the presentation.
Chair, because I
it's
see
okay.
that it does affect, it cuts some of the presentation here.
Okay, no, that's fine. We have seen it. She may do that. Thank you.
Chair, is it better? Am I loud enough, Chair?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So in this presentation, we'll be giving a little bit of a background and context to why we are having the various labor legislation and policy framework to promote equality and gender equality in the South African labor market, and to also give you an update of where we are in terms of the status of women in the labor market, looking at various occupational levels, starting from top to unskilled level, using the latest data that comes from the 25th Commission for Employment Equity Annual Report, which was published by the Minister on the 16th of May 2025. We'll then look at the gist of the amendments and its regulations. And before I close, Chair, I'll also touch on the update on the different cases that are in the different courts against employment equity, because I could tell that the minister had a challenge with the network, and therefore I'll cover it so that we get an update where we are with the litigation cases in the various courts. Chair, if I can give you a little bit of background, is that we, the people of South Africa, we are very cognizant of the fact that we had difficult time and injustices in our past, which were brought by different discriminatory legislation. And there are a number of people who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, to make sure that together, united in our diversity, we can then promote equality for all and gender equality for women. And it is against this background, Madam Chair and honorable members, that today we are celebrating our Constitution, the Bill of Rights that we are having, in particular, the Section 9, which is the Equality Clause in our Constitution, which protects the fundamental human rights to equality and the eradication of persisting legacy of economic and social injustices that are emanating from discriminatory laws and practices of the past. And emanating from the Equality Clause, which is very important, because most people ask, why are we having employment equity today? It is very important that we are all aware that Section 9(2) of the Constitution empowers the state to enact legislation and take other measures to achieve equality and protect or advance persons or categories of persons that were previously disadvantaged by unfair discrimination due to apartheid laws that were in place. So emanating from this constitutional mandate, we can also tell that the issues that are expounded in the labor relations emanates from Section 23 of the Constitution, which says that everyone has a right to fair labor practices. And I thought this background, Chair, is very important so that people understand why we have various labor legislation and policy framework that governs or protect the rights to equality and gender equality in South Africa. And I want to start, Chair, just to emphasize also that the Labor Relations Act of 1995 is a pillar of all labor legislation. It's a foundation where we derive the mandates for various legislation. And when you look at employment equity, we should not read it in isolation from other labor legislation. If you look at Labor Relations Act, which gives effect to Section 23 of the Constitution in promoting fair labor practices, it also protects both women and men against violence and harassment that can take place in the workplace. Because in terms of the LRA, any form of violence or any form of harassment against any employee is treated as an unfair labor practice. And if you look at various sections that deals with unfair labor practice, section 186 and section 187 that deals with automatically unfair dismissals, including the different codes of good practice that deal with dismissal, and the latest one that was amended as well, it protects the right of women, and it also promotes equality and gender equality in employment. Coupled with that, we then have the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. This is also a very important legislation that regulates basic conditions of employment, such as sick leave, maternity leave benefits, protection of employees before and after a birth of a child, the family responsibility leave, the different sectoral determinations that we have, in particular the domestic workers sectoral determination, and the various codes of good practice that are published under the Basic Conditions of Employment Act are aimed at making sure that women also have access to equal rights and have access to the right to dignity when they are in employment, and they are not unfairly treated when coming to the various terms and conditions of employment. Another piece of legislation that is very important, which was introduced in 2018, is the National Minimum Wage Act. This piece of legislation has changed the lives of women who were previously disadvantaged. It gives effect to Section 23 of the Constitution, the right to fair labor practice. And the National Minimum Wage Act recognizes that there are huge disparities in income in the national labor market, and it notes the need to eradicate poverty and inequality by regulating and establishing a national minimum wage, which is annually adjusted by the minister on the advice of the National Minimum Wage Commission. And again, Madam Chair, if I can emphasize, the National Minimum Wage Act, by regulating the national minimum wage and its adjustments on an annual basis, this is one mechanism that assists us in implementing and promoting the principle of equal pay for work of equal value in our labor market, to ensure that no one is paid any wages that are below the national minimum wage that we are publishing every time starting from 1 March 20 of each year. Now getting into the actual issues of Employment Equity Act. If we look at the Employment Equity Act, this act came in to promote equity, equality, inclusive of gender equality in the labor market. It addresses the extreme disparities in relation to distribution of labor market opportunities. Particularly, we know based on the apartheid laws or discriminatory laws that were in place that people were excluded from participating in the economy or occupying different occupations based on race, gender, and their disability. And this piece of legislation is therefore very instrumental to make sure that there's no discrimination and there is equality in our workplaces. And for the first time, this legislation that was introduced in 1998 was then amended in 2013 through the Employment Equity Amendment Act to ensure that we have exclusive or specific provisions that governs or forces employers to implement the principle of equal pay for work of equal value. And these principles of equal pay for work of equal value have been effective since the 1st of August in 2014. So employers know that they must comply with the Employment Equity Amendment Act of 2013. However, we have noticed that the inequalities in pay, the gender pay gap is actually continuing in the various workplaces. After the 2013 amendments, we then introduced in 2022 additional amendments to the Employment Equity Act to ensure that the Minister of Employment and Labor is empowered to regulate sector-specific EE targets for the 18 economic sectors that we have in our economy, and to ensure that all companies that comply with employment equity or the sector targets can then access employment equity compliance certificate as a condition or a prerequisite to access state contracts. If you want to do business with any organ of state, you must produce this employment equity compliance certificate. So the amendments of 2022, which came into effect on 1 January 2025, are very critical, are a catalyst to bring change and to fast track the pace of transformation in our labor market. To unpack the Employment Equity Amendment Act of 2022, the Minister, on the advice of the Commission for Employment Equity, has published 2 sets of regulations. The one that regulates the 5-year sector targets for the 18 economic sectors to be achieved by 31 August 2030 for all designated groups. These are Black people, women, and persons with disabilities. And added to that, there is a second regulation that deals with issues of equal pay and also the issues of general administration in relation to development of EE plans and the reporting requirement forms. Madam Chair and honorable members, we are in 27 years of employment equity, and there are various tools that have been published for implementation by employers in their workplaces to assist them to address issues of equity and gender equality. I've spoken to the issue that another set of regulation that was published on the 15th of April deals with EE reporting requirements, and it also deals with the income differential data collection instrument. With this instrument, we intend to collect quality data to make sure that we improve on the implementation of the principle of equal pay for work of equal value. We also have additional employment equity codes of good practice to manage different spheres of an employee's working life. The first issue that you'll see here is that there is a code that deals with the management of HIV and AIDS in the world of work, and it's got technical assistance guidelines to help employers together with employees to deal with issues of HIV and AIDS in our workplaces. We all know there is stigma around HIV and AIDS. Employees are unfairly treated because of their HIV status. And this code actually gives practical guidelines and best practices of how employers must deal with these issues without unfairly discriminating people with HIV or those that are already advanced to AIDS. And another tool that we have deals with management of persons with disabilities. Employment of persons with disabilities is an area that is of great concern. You'll see in the data that I'll share with the meeting today that whether you are a male, whether you are a woman with a disability, you are also not getting equal opportunities of employment. And this code is available, however, employers are not utilizing it. We also have a code that deals with integration of employment equity into human resource policies, practices, and procedures. This code, we call it an HR code. It helps employers to know how to integrate employment equity into their HR policies, starting from commencement of employment, during employment, and when an employee exits employment, going on retirement, or when their contracts are terminated. We also have a code which is very critical now that we have sector targets to guide employers how to develop their EE plans. Added to that, we also have an equal pay for work of equal value code that actually gives guidance on how to evaluate work of equal value, how to do job evaluations, how to grade your different occupations to make sure there is fairness in remuneration or wages. And lastly, Chair, we will
We have
see
lost
that
you.
to align with the code of good practice that prevents, which are barriers. Am I back, Madam Chair? I was saying, Madam
Yes,
Chair,
we
that the
can.
last code is very critical to ensure that we remove all barriers in relation to all forms of harassment, including workplace bullying, Chairperson. These are all tools that are critical in advancing or promoting gender equality. Then I'll quickly, Chair, move to the status where we are as reported in the 25th Commission Annual Report. And I'm focusing only on gender representation here. I didn't do the intersection of race because we are dealing here with where are women in 31 years of democracy and 27 years of employment equity. Chair, before I go into the details of where we are sitting in the various occupations, I think it's important that we benchmark against the demographics of the economically active population. The economically active population is a benchmark that is in the law under Section 42 of the Employment Equity Act. People say we are fixated on using statistics when we deal with transformation. And this is a benchmark that is important. We get this data from Statistics South Africa. It's not manufactured by the Department of Employment and Labor. So it's a reliable empirical data that we use to measure if we are able to see progress in our labor market. You'll see in this data, Chair, that women constitute 46% of the economically active population vis-a-vis the 53.9% of male representation. This is a concern, honorable members, because this tells a story that between the ages of 15 and 64 years, because economically active population deals with people that are economically active between the ages of 15 and 64 years. It excludes people below 15 years, and it excludes people that are on retirement. It includes people that are employed in formal or informal economy. It includes people that are in education or training initiatives. It also deals with people that are actively looking for jobs. This data tells us that there are women out there that have lost hope, and they are actually not covered, because if you look at the statistics here, they are only constituting 46.1% of the active, economically active population. So we need to ask ourselves questions. Where are these women? Why are women disgruntled to go out and look for jobs? Because they are not accounted in this benchmark that we are using to measure progress on employment equity. In top management, this is a very critical area where you will see that 72.5% of positions at executive level, whether you are in government, whether you are in private sector, I'm looking here at all employers that submitted reports in 2024. 72.5% of positions at top management are still occupied by men, vis-a-vis 27.5%. It's a boys' club. That's what the Commission for Employment Equity calls it. It's a boys' club at the executive level. These are people that influence strategy. They give direction. They take decisions in terms of the future of different organizations, whether you are in the public service or in the private sector. Women are less than 30%. Then in senior management, over 61% of positions are actually held by males, vis-a-vis the 38.3%. It's worrisome. This is also a very critical area because from this area, from this occupational level, you need to identify potential of women that are qualified, women that are able to run companies, women that can ascend to executive levels. But we are sitting far below 40% vis-a-vis the 46% of economically active women. At middle management, you'll see honorable members that if you look at this level, this is a very critical feeder to senior and top management levels. It's only here that all of a sudden we can see that women have risen above their EAP of 46.1%. They are sitting at 48.7%. Here we can tell and attest that these are professionally qualified people. People have degrees, they have honors, they have masters. They are stuck here at middle management. They are waiting for someone to actually identify them and nourish the talent. But I challenge women today that are in this meeting, Honorable Chairperson, that we need to ask ourselves a question. If you are on top, you are at senior management, you are at top management, who have you identified? Who are you lifting with you as you rise to senior management and top management? We need all of us to take the challenge back and say, if all of us identify one person at middle management and as we rise up, we actually nurture the talent, and there will be other females going to senior management and to top management. Women, let's look after each other. Make sure that those that are professionally qualified get an opportunity to also get access or advance to senior and top management. The pool is there, but no one has given them an opportunity to prove themselves. It doesn't matter whether it's private sector, in the political spheres, we need to all lift others as we rise. We look at junior management level. If you look at this area, we are nearly 50% in terms of gender representation. And I always argue, these are people with degrees, junior degrees. These are people with diplomas. These are people with technical skills. They've gone to TVET colleges. They've gone to universities of technology. They have the technical know-how. We need to identify those women who are sitting at senior management to make sure that we create a pool of suitably qualified women that will be the future in the various spheres of our economy. We have them, and the stats are not lying. They actually correlate with the Department of Higher Education in terms of the number of women that are qualifying for junior degrees in the different technical skills. They are here, and we are saying this is junior management. We don't need them at junior and middle management. They must go up to senior and executive levels. Semi-skilled, you'll see, Madam Chair, I'm not going to spend time here. It actually confirms what the economically active population statistics are saying from Stats South Africa. We have fewer women that are able to access jobs. We are sitting here at semi-skilled at 45.4%. And in this next level, you'll see also at unskilled level. Unskilled level is where you get an entry level to the labor market. But still, we don't see females coming up. They are sitting far below their economically active population. It's a challenge. We need to encourage each other as women and identify those women that are disgruntled and have stopped looking for jobs to come in. And when opportunities arise in terms of learnerships and internships, allow them entry into the labor market. Madam Chair, I'm wrapping up on the stats so that we get to the gist of the employment equity amendments. You'll see here is a summary of when we started analyzing the employment equity reports from 2001 to 2024. you'll see there is progress at top management. The gap is closing slowly, Madam Chair. It has narrowed. We have narrowed the gap at top management. In 2001, when the Commission for Employment Equity produced their first report, at top management, the gap was 74% between male and female. And in 2024, we are sitting at 46%. If you go to senior management, there is a slight change, but from 60% difference to 24% in 2024. And you'll see at professionally qualified, the gap has narrowed. It's only sitting in 2024 at 2%. It actually tells us there is hope. We have professionally qualified women that are ready to go to senior management and top management. And if you go down to junior management, we are on par. It supports the stats that I've just presented, that women have degrees, women have diplomas, and have technical skills and ready to ascend to upper echelons. In the next slides, Chair, you'll see that it confirms what I've just told you. It's difficult for persons with disabilities. It doesn't matter whether you are a male or a female. In 2001, representation of persons with disabilities was sitting at 0.9. And in 2024, they are only accounting for 1.3% of the workforce in the labor market. And we need to do something. I didn't do the gender split because the representation is so insignificant that it actually gives you 0-0 if you split it between male and female. And this is the picture that why we are having amendments. It is against this background that in 2022, the amendments came into place, were passed by Parliament, and then came into effect on the 1st of January 2025. And the key objectives of these amendments is to fast track the pace of transformation. You have seen the statistics. 31 years of democracy, 27 years of employment equity, we are still struggling in terms of equality and gender equality representation. So the first issue in terms of the amendments, we wanted to reduce the administrative burden on small business. This is an area that we believe that there are a number of women that are in small business and they are struggling to make ends meet. And if you still require them to do an analysis, develop plans, set targets, even when they employ less than 50 employees, we are not being fair. We need to actually elevate or reduce the administrative burden only on affirmative action. However, whether you are a small employer or a big employer, you must still comply with Chapter 2 that prohibits unfair discrimination in employment. And we believe that if we allow small business, we are also promoting gender equality. Women that are starting up in small business, they can then grow their business. And when they reach 50 employees, they can do affirmative action in terms of Chapter 3. The second critical area of the amendments deals with the empowerment of our Minister of Employment and Labor to regulate sector-specific numerical targets in order to ensure the equitable representation of suitably qualified people from the designated groups. Designated groups is Black people, African, Coloreds, and Indians, and women, irrespective of their race. It is inclusive of African, Colored, Indian, and white women, and people with disabilities, irrespective of their race and gender. They are actually beneficiaries of affirmative action. And these sector targets will assist us a lot to make sure that we see more women and more persons with disabilities being given an opportunity to enter the labor market. The last area, which is very important, which was never promulgated in 26 years of employment equity and only came into effect from 1 January 2025, is the promulgation of Section 53 of the Employment Equity Act. This section allows the department to issue employment equity compliance certificate to all employers, irrespective of their size, to make sure that before they tender or put their proposals to access any state contracts, they must produce this employment equity compliance certificate issued starting from 1 September 2025 going forward. And we have made it easier for all employers. You can access this certificate online. All our EE amendments have been automated into the employment equity system to make sure that if you have internet access 24/7, you are able to access the certificate of compliance, especially for small business. You can even access it through the data on your cell phone. You just log into our website, you go to EE Online Services, you click on Request Certificate of Compliance, under 2 minutes or even less than a minute, you are able to access your compliance certificate. And we have made sure that there will be no manual certificates that are issued by inspectors, so that there's no manipulation, there's no bribes that are being paid for this certificate of compliance. Only people that comply in terms of the criteria will be able to access this certificate. And I've already touched on the 2 sets of regulations. Madam Chair, it's important that we understand that in the regulations, the criteria to access the e-compliance certificate varies based on whether you are a small employer or a big employer that employs 50 or more employees. If you are a small employer, it's easy for you. You use your cell phone, go to internet cafe, and you must declare when you get to our employment equity platform that you are paying the national minimum wage, or you have been granted exemption not to pay the minimum wage for the previous 12 months. And you must confirm that you don't have any CCMA or a labor court judgment on unfair discrimination against you as an employer for the previous 12 months. As soon as you are done, you are declaring online, you are able to download your certificate of compliance. You can email it, you can save it, you can print it and attach it to your proposal of accessing any state contract in any organ of state. But if you are a big employer with 50 or more employees, you must submit your EE report, which is your EA2 and EA4. And you must submit it between the period of 1 September and 15 January 2026. We are currently receiving a number of reports starting from 1 September since we opened. I can confirm here that it is 2 weeks and over 190 good reports have already been submitted, and small businesses, over 160 small businesses have accessed our system in these 2 weeks and have received their EE compliance certificate. And it's still a long way until 15 January. The numbers will increase as people start accessing the system. Second criteria is that you must meet your own EE targets. Madam Chair, there is flexibility here. These are not quotas. Employers are still allowed to actually set their own annual targets, how they will move towards achieving the 5-year sector targets that were published by the minister on 15 April. And then the last 2 criteria is similar to those criteria that a small business must comply with. You must pay the national minimum wage, and you must not unfairly discriminate against anyone in the past 12 months. Here is the linkage with the national minimum wage. National minimum wage already is one vehicle that informs the principle of equal pay for work of equal value. That's why under this act, it's critical that everyone must pay the national minimum wage. Chair, I've just given additional information there on quotas versus sector E targets. This is very critical because most of the cases that are in the High Court, that are in the Labor Court against the sector targets is because there is a belief that sector targets are quotas. There is a big difference between quotas and sector EE targets. Quotas are rigid and not flexible. And people that are in the fishing industry, I always give them an example with the fishing quotas that are regulated. You cannot actually exceed the fishing quotas that are regulated and you'll be found wanting. But with sector targets, there is flexibility. These are milestones and employers are still allowed to consult with employees and set their own annual targets, how they will reach the 5-year sector targets regulated by the minister. Furthermore, if you fail to achieve your own annual targets towards the 5-year sector target, in the regulations, we have put justifiable grounds that employers can raise so that they can still get their certificate of compliance. You will never find such flexibility in the quotas. And people in the fishing industry understand exactly what are quotas. And our sector targets are not quotas, they are not unconstitutional. And because of the flexibility, we believe that it helps employers to move towards transforming their organizations. Just to show the justifiable reasons that are in the regulations, which were published on 15 April, if the company is not growing, there will be no recruitment or promotion opportunities. An employer can raise that as a justifiable reason for failure not meet their own annual targets so that they can get the compliance certificate and do business with the government. Insufficient target individuals from the designated groups. If you can't find suitably qualified people, they're still in training and the job is critical, then you can raise a justifiable reason. If a CCMA or a court order prevents you from filling a position, that is justifiable. If you transfer the business in the middle of the 12 months, then it's justifiable because it prevents you from meeting your targets. Measures and accusations, we are aware that business changes and evolves all the time. Therefore, we have catered for that. People merge, people acquire other business, and it actually messes up your annual targets. You are catered for. Should anything happen and the economy is not growing as we anticipated, and we have a pandemic like COVID, we have just come out of COVID, most companies had to downsize, more companies retrenched. It's a valid reason why you are not able to actually reach your targets. So this justifiable target grounds are very critical to ensure that there is flexibility and there are no quotas. Just lastly here, Chair, I think we need to highlight that we acknowledge as the department that there are still challenges that requires intervention in terms of transforming organizations, promoting equality and gender equality as a whole. And if you look, the first challenge, self-regulation hasn't worked in 27 years of employment equity. And we believe that the current amendments that empowers the minister to regulate 5-year sector target is one initiative or intervention that will help people with disabilities, women to actually advance and also be recognized or given equal opportunities to access employment. The other key area that we have realized is that there is a lack of accurate data on wage or pay inequalities. We are unable to actually measure properly what is the gender pay gap and what is the gap between the highest paid and the lowest paid. And in these amendments that we have just put into effect from 1 January and 15 April, we have the EA4 income differential data collection instrument that will help us to collect quality data so that in 2026 2027 financial year, the minister can be able, on the advice of the National Minimum Wage Commission and the Commission for Employment Equity, to publish a report that gives accurate measurement in terms of how big is the wage gap, how big is the gender pay gap, using the current amendments and the EA4 form that employers have already started submitting since the 1st of September. And we have aligned our legislation to the amendments to the Companies Act, because the Companies Act now requires all companies, especially in private sector, to publish in their annual financial reports the wages that are paid to their executives vis-a-vis the wages that are earned by employees at lower levels. So there is proper alignment of our legislation as government to ensure that we are able to collect empirical data and we are able to pronounce where we are sitting in terms of inequalities in pay and wages. The next challenge that we have realized that Honorable Chair, can I wrap up?
Sorry to disturb. No, sorry to disturb.
Okay.
I was trying to say, as you're making some emphasis, you'll then have tried to wrap up so that we allow members to ask. Maybe they may have some questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wrapping up. These are key challenges. The work-life balance policies, we have seen that they are not there to allow women to access equal opportunities at work. Violence and harassment, I've touched on it, workplace bullying, and inadequate monitoring and enforcement mechanisms. And Chair, we believe that we need to do a lot of advocacy campaigns. We need to capacitate our inspectors. We need specialized commissioners as CCMA and specialized judges that can deal with issues of harassment and workplace bullying, inclusive of issues of equal pay for work of equal value. Chair, I'm not going to touch much here. I just want to give update that we have done a lot of initiatives to ensure that we implement the amendments. We have capacitated our inspectors in April. We have done roadshows throughout the country to make sure that together with the CCMA, we educate labor market stakeholders. We have actually had dedicated workshops for trade unions in August to make sure that they're empowered to enforce compliance at the workplace level. And we are currently busy with submission of e-reports based on the new amendments. And we have already recorded over 160 small business and over 190 big businesses that have accessed the EE compliance certificate through our EE system in 2 weeks since we opened. And Madam Chair, just an update on the case law. The DA case was heard on the 6th of May. However, while we are at the hearing, the Khoisan group joined the case of DA because they want to be recognized as a separate designated groups from the colored group. And due to the fact that they have now since filed court papers to join the DA case, we have not received any judgment from the High Court in Pretoria. The second case, Chair, was from the National Employers Association, NIASA and Sakalika. They claim to represent just around 7,000 employers in different economic sectors. And they went to the High Court in Johannesburg to interdict the implementation of the regulations that were published on 15 April. And the application was in 2 parts. The first part was to interdict the implementation of the regulations and the sector targets. And the second part, they wanted the court to declare the setting of sectoral targets to be unconstitutional. However, the judgment that came out on 28th of August declared that the remedy that they were asking to interdict the implementation of the regulations was dismissed. The court only dealt with the interdiction of the implementation of the sector targets and regulations and ruled in favor of the department that we can continue to actually implement the amendments and the regulations and the sector targets. The Part B has not been dealt with, dealing with constitutionality of the sector targets. Therefore, we believe that Niasa and Sakalika have now gone to the High Court to appeal the Part A that was dismissed on the 28th of August. We are busy currently consulting and putting our answering affidavits to actually defend the appeal that they have put, and we have received the papers yesterday. The last case, Chair, is Solidarity Trade Union that has gone to the Labour Court. They are claiming that the contents of the settlement agreement that was reached with the Minister of Employment and Labour in June 2023, the contents are not included, all of them, in the current regulations. And we have been given an opportunity by the court, the Labour Court, to file our answering affidavit to indicate that the contents of the settlement agreement have been catered for in the current regulations, in the various provisions of the law. And we will be filing our answering affidavit, and the court hearing is scheduled for 19 November 2025. Chair, we are doing all our best to make sure that there are no barriers to transformation, and whoever is challenging the amendments and the sector targets, we are making sure that we are answering and defending our position as the department. Because to us, Chairperson, employment equity and gender equality is not just a human right or a moral or social issue, but it's an imperative for social justice and economic empowerment. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to address you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Meth, and I just couldn't pronounce the name, and the lady who has just gave us this presentation. I don't want to waste time for now. Thank you very much, Ms. Mamashile. I will now, members, there is the information. Remember, they are not, they are empowering us. And therefore, if there are issues that we may want to raise with them, and maybe if they can clarify some of the issues, and if we have got some requests from them, that is what we are to do. They are accountable in terms of oversight to the Portfolio Committee of Employment and Labour. Any hands? Whilst members are still thinking, I've just got some couple minister okay. Before that, I see Honorable Taleka Mazibuko. Just hold on. Okay, you are still, and Honorable Tembekwayo. Those are the two hands for now. Over to you, Honorable Taleka Mazibuko. And after you, it will be Honorable Tembekwayo. After you, it will be Honorable Betty. I can't pronounce that surname. Thank you. Sorry for that, Honorable Betty. You will assist me. Over to you, three members.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm going to be very short, but appreciating the presentation and the information we have received, especially on the amendments. My anxiety here, Chair, is the enforcement of these progressive laws we are having as a country, especially to the companies that are owned by foreign nationals. You go to China Mall, for example. We have a lot of China malls and China cities in the country. And when you get there, let alone the equity, but the people who are working there, you find very seldom a local working for these companies. As much as we appreciate, because they are here for investment, but in terms of employment, they are not assisting the country in dealing with the issue of unemployment. You go to the restaurants, Chair, you find foreign nationals, waiters working there who are exploited by this. I asked one of them the other day on how do you get payment, and she said no, they only pay per commission. It depends how many customers you have served, then you get the money. So the question I have to the Department of Labor or the Labor Ministry is the enforcement of the implementation of our laws in these companies which are within the country and owned by foreign nationals who are here, especially the big companies like China malls. I mean, they are very big. So for me, that is my question as Nzwaki was presenting. Uguti, our inspectors, how far do they go in terms of dealing with that problem? Because for me, that is a challenge that needs that needs government to intervene, especially the Department of Labor, if we can be helped there, Chair. Thank you very much. That's all I have. Otherwise, we appreciate the information.
Honorable Tembekwayo, thank you, Honorable Talega Masibuko. Honorable Tembekwayo.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the presentation. I wanted to ask exactly of the question that was asked by the previous honorable member here, but I'll continue to ask about here, say for an example, we have people that own small businesses where there is altogether, say for an example, where they experience problems of network. How do you handle such a situation, especially when everything that needs to be submitted for compliance has to be done through internet or any other ICT related opportunity that is there? Since you also have cancelled the manual certificate, of which the manual certificate would definitely have helped those that are in such a problem, where they will be visited by the inspectors, and the inspectors would definitely be able to can issue out the certificate. So about such groups of people, then there is nothing that is happening. They are not even charged, and your department is not in actual fact prepared to reach out to them. And did you ever have some road shows to share information on this new information that is discussed today? Road shows or consultative type of the information. And the last question, how does the Department of Employment and Labor enforce compliance? And what are the consequences of non-compliance in this regard? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Tembekwayo. Honorable Betty.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to you and on all honorable members on the platform. My name is Betty Kegakilwe.
Thank you very much.
And let me appreciate the well-informative presentation, as well as the input by the minister, the opening remarks. We were well informed. I have one concern, because this issue of employment equity, if we can start it in our government institutions and our government state-owned entities, then we can now go to the private sector. But you look in our institutions, we do have women, We do have colors, we do have Indians who are qualified enough. But you go and search, you'll find that none of those qualifying women are given a chance to be in those positions. I will give an example. Ko Northwest, we have 10 departments and then one with 2 HODs. But out of 11 HODs, only one is a female, it's a woman. And we have more qualified, even in the province and around the country. If we can just start addressing this thing, it's going to assist. But what I need to ask the department is, what is it that they are doing to compel the departments and the state-owned entities to do the right thing? Because I know that on a yearly basis, they do submit their employment equity plans and all those things. But at the end, they have their targets, they don't meet the targets. And they always have reasons. They always have reasons, like the presenter has indicated that if there is a reason, then it's going to be accommodated. But in our departments and state-owned entities, really, there are no reasons for women not to be in executive positions. And I think the department, they must instill a punitive measure for all the departments and the state-owned entities, so that when they do not comply with their targets and there were positions advertised during that financial year, then they must be punished. That is all that I want to say, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. From my side, just one question, but the rest will be comments when I close. And ignore a minister and the department, my ignorance. Adverts. Adverts are a challenge. I don't know whether is there anything that is then being by the department. I'm saying adverts because adverts are saying a person must employ, a person who's legible, it will be the one that will be 35 and below. And a number of persons that are unemployed, both males and females, majority of them are from 35 and above. What is it? Is it the law of our country? And yeah, that I thought, because I'm asking that question because it's my understanding that you are a portfolio, a department that is to create a conducive environment for employment. You're not employing, conducive environment. But when we look into adverts, it is still saying from 18 and 35. And there's a big cry outside there, in particular, young people. Thank you very much. I'll give over to you in terms of responding on those few questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you so much. I want to recommend, Chair, thank you for the questions. I want to recommend that Ms. Ntswagi starts, but we are all lined up to deal with other issues that might not be covered by Ms. Ntswagi. As I said before, I'm here with the DMs, and initially I had managed to see DM Sibiya, who is delegated this role of inspection and enforcement. I'm sure you would also share some insights and experiences in the work that they do across the country. So if you allow, I'll ask Ms. Ntswagi, then deputies, I can't request them to respond because they've got their own individual right to raise their hands if they feel there's something they want to say. But at least Nzwagi must start. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Ms. Ntswaki.
Thank you, Minister and Madam Chair. I'll start with the issue of what we are doing to enforce the law, in particular also to companies that are owned by foreign nationals. In terms of our jurisdiction, our inspectors, when they do their work, they must cover all companies, irrespective of whether they are multinationals or South African companies, and make sure that all labor laws are adhered to, and there is compliance. Therefore, companies that are owned by foreign nationals are not exempted from complying with the law. As long as they operate in South Africa, they must comply, meaning that they are also compelled to comply with the sector targets that the minister has published for the 5 years. Therefore, our inspectors must enforce the labor laws. Hence, we capacitated them in April to understand the amendments and be able to enforce it effectively. I'll come to how do we assist small employers that have no access to internet so that they can access our platform. We have also had workshops with our own internal staff throughout the country that should any person, any employer come to our labor centers and they want the officials of the department to assist them to request a certificate of compliance, they should be able to enter into our system, because we have also trained our provincial officials on how to utilize our e-system to help those small businesses to get the certificate immediately. They will be able to help them so that we take away all the barriers of data challenges and access to the internet to get the compliance order if they want to tender for state contracts. So we have actually made sure that we have made ourselves available. Maybe I need to explain, Minister, that when we say there will be no manual certificate, we don't want any official of the department to be issuing a certificate that is handwritten. They will be able to log into the system, and the system should automatically generate the certificate of compliance, because there are security measures that are put on the certificate so that you are not able to use one certificate and just change the name of a company when you want to tender. They are all coded, and they are actually leaving an audit trail on the system. Hence, we don't want manually written compliance certificates, because then we are allowing or opening ourselves for abuse in terms of having EE compliance certificates that are fraudulent and are not accounted for in when the Auditor General actually comes in to audit us as the department. That's the only reason, but we have made sure that we have made ourselves or our officials throughout the country available to assist whenever they need to assist an employer who doesn't have access to data or the internet. There was also a question whether we have done roadshows. Yes, Honorable Member, we started with national roadshows immediately after we published the regulations. We started on the 20th of May and we finished in Cape Town on the 10th of July, and the Cape Town stakeholders requested an additional online workshop on the amendments and the regulations. We did an online roadshow on the 22nd of July to make sure that everyone, employers, organizations, academics, trade unions, employees, HR managers are well aware of the amendments. And on a monthly, if not a weekly basis, we are doing bilaterals upon a request by different employers, organizations, and government departments, inclusive of municipalities. So we have actually made sure that everyone has been assisted. I need to also emphasize that people have started accessing the EE compliance certificate from 1 September 2025. The certificate is valid for 12 months, and if 12 months expires, they will have to actually apply for another certificate. I'm moving on, Minister, if you allow me, to cover other areas that are very important. There was an issue asked. I've touched on the issue how we enforce compliance. Our EE inspectors have been trained in April, and we are continuing with them, capacitating them to enforce compliance across all economic sectors, whether in private and public sector. And if any company or any government department or public entity has not complied, they will all suffer the same consequences of being referred to the labor court for a penalty if there are no justifiable reasons why they couldn't comply. So there were, an honorable member said we should try and force government and public entities to ensure that they employ women. The minister have published specific targets for all economic sectors, including government, provincial, public, meaning the whole public administration, which is inclusive of municipalities, inclusive of provincial and national government, state-owned companies. They all fall under public administration. We have given them targets for the next 5 years to ensure that women and people with disabilities are also employed, and all government departments comply with the targets, and they will be assessed on an annual basis as they submit EE reports. And if found wanting, they are not spared by our inspectors to be referred to the labor court for a penalty of 1.5 million or 2% of their turnover. And if you are in government, 2% of your turnover is the allocated budget, and you have to account why you are spending taxpayers' money on penalties for non-compliance. The other issue was that I've covered the non-compliance by government departments, instill punitive measures. I've touched on it, that they will suffer the consequences. The issue of age restrictions in the adverts. Honorable member, Madam Chair, we've heard about the restrictions that are in adverts. And we are trying, as we go around the country in our roadshows, to educate even government departments that age restrictions, they must be careful when they put it in the adverts. Remember, Section 6(1) of the Employment Equity Act prohibits unfair discrimination based on age and other grounds. Therefore, when they advertise, they should not be seen to be unfairly discriminating any person based on age. We know that the youth are suffering unemployment, but the law says you cannot unfairly discriminate against anyone based on age. Thank you, Minister and Madam Chair. I think I've touched on all questions that were asked, but Minister, I'm handing over to you. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, ma'am. I don't know whether Minister Sbiya would like also to before I allow the minister, both DMs, but in particular the one who's delegated around the issue of enforcement, which is the inspectors. If Honorable DM Sbiya wants to come in, it's fine before I allow the minister to come in. And man obuse khona na pe platformini ngoza ndimbonanga ndimboni ngoku. All
The
right,
name
Honorable.
is here, Chairperson. I even sent him a message because I wanted him to also share the experience, even though I agree with Ms. Ntwaki that she responded on the issue of the non-South Africans who are doing business in South Africa. there's this recent case of the 7 Chinese nationals who were also imprisoned. Because of that, there was a case, and then the judgment was 20 years imprisonment. So it shows and it sends a lesson to all those who are in South Africa that they will be expected to adhere and to obey to the laws of the Republic. But also, I think Honorable Deputy Minister Nemadzinga might want to say something, because she's also delegated a very important sector, the disability in particular, dealing with the C, which is supported and employment enterprises, which are factors that we are having across the country. Maybe she would like to just share. And I know she always serves as an ambassador for those factories in terms of getting government departments in particular setting aside to procure in the work that they're doing, because they produce state-of-the-art products. So I don't know if she would like to say anything, Chair, through you, then I'll come in.
Yes, she can. Yeah, she can. Then you'll come in and wrap up. DM? Bako DM bako baxhoma ibhatyi. Because
Okay, thank you.
I will hand over to you, Minister.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, and thanks once more for the questions. And thanks, Ms. Nzwaki, for trying to respond to everything that was raised by members. I'm satisfied, Chair. I just wanted to add the fact that we understand that the capacity of the Department of Employment and Labor is not equivalent to the task at hand. And unfortunately, we are one of the departments, or if not the only department, that is never remembered when there is budget increases that happen across the government departments. We remain very challenged in terms of finances, constraint. We've got your CCMA that had to reduce the number that the part-time commissioners work, the number of hours that they work because of the issue of the budget and funding. We always sometimes try to close the gap using the money of UIF in supporting the work that we are doing with our entities. An example at hand, there is money that we allocate every year to Productivity South Africa, and it is from UIF in ensuring that we turn around businesses, we rescue them so that we preserve jobs, and we make sure that businesses grow and they are productive. So we also have a program that we have engaged on, agreed upon as the ministry, of adding, because we've got only about 2,000, just above 2,000 inspectors across all compliance areas. And we are supposed to inspect, I think, close, if not more than 10 million establishments in terms of businesses, including also the public sector. So it is for that reason why we came up with a project that is trying to assist to give, in particular, the graduates who are unemployed, the exposure and first-time employment for 2 years as interns, inspector interns, under the project we call Project 20,000. I was reported previously, I think in the last 3 weeks, that already we have successfully engaged more than 2,000, which says we've doubled the number. This year we wanted to at least recruit 10,000, then next year another 10,000, but to be with us for 2 years each cohort. So we are trying, because we see the need, we see the fact that we are not able to get in all places. In the Western Cape, women, farmers, and farm workers in particular, are subjected to all unacceptable situations, including being evicted, being underpaid, being discriminated against and harassed, all those things. So there is a dire need for us to be able to access. So I agree with the Honorable Member Thembe Kwayo that there is a need to deal with that. But I thought also Ms. Tswage will talk to the consequences that differ on non-compliance. There's many sanctions, different sanctions that gets to be imposed on those who are non-compliant. So I wanted her, if you allow her, just to make an example, even if she doesn't list all of them. For an example, if then there are employees like the one that was mentioned here, where they are so abused at workplace, they are not getting paid a salary, instead they are only given a commission, which a commission is a right to employees, but it can't be used to replace the salary. And if then, when we do inspection, we even go with the bargaining council, which is responsible to be a watchdog for the compliance on the basic conditions of Employment Act. And if then people are owing, they are not contributing to the UIF, in terms of the UIF Act, also they are also responsible for that. We are making them to pay those employees that to pay that contribution and backdate it, because majority of times employers don't pay. If then, in terms of the monies, the national minimum wage is not met, and even monies for overtime, and employees are not given time for lunch and all that, the number that the employees are working. There's also a compensation in terms of the money that gets to be paid to employees as we do our inspection. Hence, I thought then I will talk to those issues of enforcement and in particular the consequence management and on non-compliant employees. They even get to be sent to court and be convicted, as I was making an example. Working well with the Department of Home Affairs, the board management of Home Affairs, SAPS, and when we get to a place and we find all sorts of non-compliances, sometimes we close the businesses, we take those employers to the police, and then they get to be charged, and then they are deferred to the courts of this country. So, Chair, that's what I wanted just to add. And I want also to say it's disheartening to have heard that as we are having 45 departments as the national government, of those, only 10 women are DGs. So I would implore the work of the Caucus so that if then there is a need at a very global level to request the DG of Presidency or whoever, or Minister of Monitoring and Evaluation, or whoever is responsible, so that there is a plan that says, well, how are we going to address that matter? Because when men exit the system, there should be a very high-level, microscopic understanding of how government is performed, because you can't be a department of government that is going around in particular being strict with the business, whilst our own government is found wanting when it comes to issues of compliance. And lastly, Chair, I would love to see this advert, because I think we can't treat that as a business as usual. If there are adverts that are issued by whoever, who are saying the minimum age is 35, and less and younger, I don't understand. I know there are programs that are specifically for youth, where I understand when then the maximum, not the minimum, so the maximum age is put to be 35 and under, because it's a program that is targeting youth. We know that SANDF has got their own maximum age, no police. So except for those programs and those departments, I don't understand any other institution, be it private or public, that may discriminate in terms of age. So I always respond to people raising these issues to say there is no such a thing. There is no law like that, as also Ms. Ntswagi has correctly said. Thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity.
No, thank you very much. I will first let me then, in the issues that have been raised, Ms. Ntswagi, I'm sure she has she has recorded that. Can you please put those in writing and send them to the Secretariat? And both the ministers, if your DMs, if they can put that in writing, even if it's just a one pager or two in areas of enforcement where difficulties are. Both the chair of M&E and her minister are in the platform. I think they've taken note of what you have said in terms of government in areas of DGs, but I would appreciate if it can then go beyond beyond DGs, but also Parliament, because Parliament, we will also invite, as much as we will invite the DG in the presidency, because it is my understanding that DGs are employed in that is where the whole thing of DG is in the presidency. Also call the Minister of M&E and the Secretary to Parliament to take us through. Members, our grandmothers on the 9th of September 1956 marched under very difficult environment where they could have been
9th
killed.
of August, Chairperson, not September.
I'm sorry, 9th of August, where they marched under very difficult environment and situation where they could have been killed. They march irrespective of race and class for us to be where we are, for us to be called public representatives. The struggle of transformation is not very easy, but we are to identify, I think, as the Multi-Party Women's Caucus, through the steering committee, we will identify those areas which we will then invite those the ministers that may be key on those areas that may be a stumbling block for some of women to be employed. For an example, skills. I saw DM of basic education who is part of this. We can't when, as much as the struggle for transformation is difficult, as much as people that are resisting transformation are using courts, I don't think, in my view, I may be naive and I must be told that we may be, our grandmothers who may have been killed at the time for marching and say enough is enough. And therefore we must identify areas where we must rock the country, irrespective, because all these issues that are raised here are raised that are affecting women are irrespective of political affiliation, are for the benefit of our great children, both males and females, because we benefited from our grandmothers. And therefore we will then have to, at a particular time, the DM through him, in fact, Ministry of Basic Education, the lender of early childhood development. The world of work has changed. Artificial intelligence is now the key, and therefore it's not going to start grade 10. It's going to start at the early childhood development. And therefore, I don't think we have got a lot in our plate, but at the steering committee, we told ourselves that we're not going to do everything at the same time. At a particular year we will look into a particular sector, but with ensuring that we are not going to forget about GBV. It will be part of that. Finish this term. Our people, women in particular, who are the faced of hunger and poverty. And as women and those women are not that faced because of their own thing. It's because of the situation. And we have been fortunate, Tina, we have been fortunate to be called public representatives. Lastly, we must not forget that we are also employers. We have got our helpers. How are we treating them? How are we treating them? I'm raising this because as the multi-party women's caucus, we are an interface between parliament and the community. And therefore it will be a disgrace if we go to a province A and somebody stand up at Tunjwa is my employer and she is paying me 1,000 rand a month. I'm making an example. And therefore, as we are having other issues that we are dealing with in terms of where we are deployed, but we must unite. I think the minister said something very profound. I want to summarize it. When women are united, the world can change. When women are united, our country can change. When women are united, a number of issues, in particular GBV, because everything starts at home. That thing that says charity begins at home. The first school, before a child go to a formal school, the first school is a home, and therefore parenting, which at the end empower every child, whether a girl or a boy. It empowers in skills and that's why you're going to see a trend of your child. So thank you very much. It's not going to be the last minister that we call you, because I would have thought that maybe, I know you do that in the portfolio committee, you would have give us the sectors and the color. You said we must call it as it is. We will then have to see those numbers. If you are able to say DGs, there are only 4 DGs in the public sector, in the public sector, true in terms of the executive, we must know what is happening in that area, what really is happening. So there are things that we must really call them as they are, irrespective, and it's not about being politicking. Those women that marched on the 9th of August, as much as it was about politics, but it was about unity in strength. And united, we will stand as women for the benefit of the country, but divided as women, the country will fall. Thank you very much, honorable members. We will meet again on our last Thursday. I mean, Thursday. That will be in October. But Minister, we will request that information. And I think as a steering committee again, we will invite you with your DMs and your heads of employment and equity, the DG or DDG, in that to just unpack some of the things that we have picked up in the Women's Parliament. It's unfortunate that your department, that of employment of employment labor, I'm not quite sure who joined on the hybrid, and that of education, and health. I don't know who have joined. We have not yet received the register, because if we want our economy to grow, its citizenry must be healthy and it must be skilled, irrespective of gender. Its citizenry must be healthy and must be skilled. Thank you very much. We will meet again in October.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, Chairperson. The committee must still consider and adopt the minutes of our last meeting, Chair.
Okay. We have circulated, sorry for that. We have circulated them. Am I correct? We have circulated them to members because they
Yes,
can
Chair.
adopt them. Yes. Can you just take us through? That's page 1.
Yes, Chair. Page 1 is the agenda, which was the briefing by SAPS and Department of Justice on the progress and challenges encountered in the implementation of GBVF. The attendance of members, staff, and national departments. Page 4 is the opening and welcoming by the chairperson, remarks by the Minister of Police, and also the briefing by the SAPS, which is page 5, remarks by the Minister of Justice. Page 6, briefing by the Department of Justice. Page 7, members' discussions. Page 8, which is adjournment. Chairperson, I believe that members have had the opportunity to read through the minutes. So, Chair, with your permission, our members will then now indicate whether if there are any additions or deletions they wish to propose on the minutes, Chair. Those are the minutes of the 26th of July, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any comments? If none, can we get a formal mover? Can we get a formal mover? Well, we will defer them to our next meeting, Ms. Moy.
I move, Chair. I move for the adoption of the minutes.
Okay. I see 3 hands. Honorable,
It's Honorable Ndlovu.
I saw 2 hands. Honorable Gancho.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I move for the adoption of the minutes as tabled. Thank you.
Thank you, and Honorable Betty Setswana ke se tsebe.
It's a very long thing. I will be fine with Keha. I second, Chair, for the approval of the minutes.
Thank you very much. Our meeting Our meeting stands adjourned until we meet in October. Thank you very much, honorable members. We will maybe through our WhatsApp group, because we won't call another meeting, we'll update members about the P20 sitting, which is going to be towards the end of September, in terms of the delegation, the final delegation, and the venue. The date, the final delegation, and the venue of the P20 delegation, which P20 Parliament, which will be led by the Speaker and the Chair of the National Council of Provinces. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Long live the chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Long live the chair.